Well, why don't we talk about this 2013 signing class for the Tennessee Volunteers? We bring in National Director of Recruiting for 24/7 Sports. That would be J.C. Shurburtt. J.C., Vincent, Jesse, how you doing, J.C.?
Hey, it's great to be with you guys today.
Hey, we'll always enjoy having you on. And, J.C., before we begin, I want to congratulate you and 24/7 on the partnership with CBS. I know that's a huge addition to have that partnership and that platform for traffic and resources. I know that's important for you guys.
Absolutely. And, outside of ESPN, I think CBS is probably the strongest media brand in college sports, with the NCAA tournament, also their contract with the SEC and, all that they do for college athletics. So, for us being primarily at this point a college sports network, it made all the sense in the world. And, we're excited. Our traffic was way up, tripled for this signing day over the other, and we're starting to really grow and make some headways, and got good people, and we're excited.
JC, before we really dissect this Tennessee recruiting class, I know you're on radio shows across the Southeast, the country. When you're on with somebody Alabama-focused, I guess, on what they cover, are they spoiled? Do they complain about their signing class? Or, the perception around the country is they get whoever they want to, they're loaded. But do they ever complain or kind of gripe about getting this guy?
Well, no. They actually, Alabama fans in general, they don't really. I don't know. Every fan base has, its passionate group and the lunatic fringe, if you will. Alabama fans in general are real laid back, as far as the ones that ask about recruiting and things like that. I think that one thing I did notice a couple of weeks ago, when you just looked at the top prospects in the country that were making decisions, Alabama did not really project to get any of them. And that caused a little bit of, hey, what's going on here? Why are we finishing poorly? But then, boom, A'Shawn Robinson comes. They nail down Kamara. They got Reuben Foster. So getting 2 5-stars like Foster and Robinson late, gave them some momentum. I mean, really, Alabama was probably going to have the number one class regardless, but closing with a bang like that certainly always helps in terms of momentum and moving into the spring and off season, and then on into the next year. But I think their class almost is like a luxury item. I was talking the other day in an interview, and I said it's like having a fleet of BMWs, real nice BMWs. And then, like car number 22, you decide just to upgrade that. Your older 1990 BMW, you just upgrade that with a Ferrari. It's not even necessary to have Derrick Henry, but they've got him. So I think that's going to be a real interesting, I guess, look to see how that roster comes together, and if they end up being just too talented for anybody else in the country. I mean, it could be. It could be an unprecedented run of success for them, kind of like, I don't know, UCLA in basketball in the 70s. I don't know. I think, football is a little different, but certainly the way the roster's shaping up at Bama, it's an embarrassment of riches.
Visiting with J.C. Shurburtt, National Director of Recruiting. We'll get back into some SEC stuff in a little bit, but I want to talk to you about this Tennessee signing class. What are some of the specific things that you like about this signing class? And we'll get into some other things after that. What do you like about the signing class, J.C.?
Well, I like Josh Dobbs. I think, and I believe on signing day, had Von Bell signed with Tennessee and had Josh Dobbs stuck with Arizona State, there would have been probably more joy in Knoxville, but that's sort of the fallacy sometimes of recruiting. I think you can go find a safety. I think you can go find a corner just about every year. And Von Bell's a special player, no doubt, and it hurt, because he is essentially an in-state kid to lose him to Ohio State. But, Josh Dobbs is a potential program changer. He's got better feet right now than probably any quarterback on Tennessee's roster. He's got a strong arm. He's a 4.0 student. He's a leader. He's a great baseball player. He's 6'3", 190 pounds, and is an accurate passer and also can hit the deep ball. So, I think that's the quarterback of the future. And given the critical nature of that position, I think that was Tennessee's biggest get. I like the receiver class. I think, Paul Harris and Marquez North are going to remind a lot of Vols fans of the guys that they've had, the taller players like Justin Hunter and Cordero Patterson. Probably not as fast. Harris is probably not as fast as those guys. North's a little more raw. Jason Carr is a big time defensive end prospect out of Memphis that, Tennessee had to hold off Alabama and Ole Miss and all their momentum to keep him in the fold, and they did. If you're looking for a sleeper in the class, Cameron Sutton from Jonesboro, Georgia, is a player that I've always liked. He can help in the return game. I think he can play corner, maybe receiver. Just a real fast, explosive athlete. And you look down at the end. I mean, there's some guys you're going to have to figure out. Jalen Miller's a player out of Gaffney, South Carolina that, I've been scouting for a while. He's sort of a tweener. He has potential. Jabbo Lee, another player out of South Carolina, is kind of an undersized back that can help in the return game. If there is a negative about this class is that Tennessee did not sign the running back they need to sign. And I don't know what the issue is there. Jay Graham's one of the best recruiters in the country. He'll be on our national top 50 recruiters list later today. And, he goes out and recruits these guys. And, I know it's not him. I don't know what it is with regards to some of the top backs not wanting to come take advantage of the opportunity at Tennessee, because that opportunity certainly is there.
You feel like it was critical? Obviously it is, that they needed a running back for this signing class, given the offensive line they have coming back.
Yeah, I do, because I think you have to run the football in the SEC, even if you like to throw it a bunch. So I think that, it was very critical to get that done. And, I think the Vols at times last year were very pass happy just because, their better players were, in the passing game. And I guess you just going to have to rely on the guys on campus. And look, those backs at Tennessee right now, it's not like they're chopped liver. They're pretty good players. They're just not, they're not the level of back that a Georgia has or a Florida has or Florida has coming in and, and South Carolina and all the other teams in the East. So I think that, that's the issue. And I'll say this again, this may be a blessing in disguise for the Vols, because I think it's critical for 2014 because there are some really good players in Tennessee for 2014. The state is cycling back up. If they can find a way to get Jalen Hurd, I think that's for the 2014 class, that's an instant boom. And that's an instant kind of upgrade to your run game, because he's very Marcus Lattimore-esque. He's a big, strong kid, but also fast. In-state player, grew up a Vols fan. You're going to have to fight off Ohio State and Florida and all the whole country on him. But, I think that, with the way the depth chart's going to shake out, I think that may actually put the Vols in a better position with Hurd.
Give some insight as to where you would rank Tennessee's, roster of quarterbacks nationally.
Well, right now, I think with the two new guys coming in, Riley Ferguson, who I didn't mention earlier, he's kind of fits the scheme too. He's got good feet, a good arm. He started his last 3 years of high school football for Butler over in Charlotte, which is, a tremendous football program, a winning program. He's got a lot of potential too. And then, you have youngsters like Justin Worley and Nathan Peterman already there. I think of the two, Peterman's probably the better fit for what Butch Jones likes to do. So, Tennessee's going to be pretty good at quarterback. They're not a school in the league and there's some programs in the league where you sort of look at the quarterback depth and go, wow, Florida's one of them, because after Jeff Driscoll, there's just nobody. So I think that, through the Dooley era, the one thing Tennessee did well was recruit at receiver and get some good quarterbacks in there. So I think that, right now it'll be good to go, in the future. And as far as this class goes, anytime you can get two guys like Dobbs and Ferguson, your quarterback class is going to be up there with everybody else, just because most schools only sign one.
JC, Tennessee being in the 24/7 composite, last I saw was at 25. That's 11th in the SEC. What about this year in the Southeastern Conference in recruiting? Pretty dominant like normal, right?
Yeah, it was. It was quite an effort. Missouri is 14th in our SEC rankings, and they have the 38th best class in the country. So that's really saying something. Kentucky and Vanderbilt 13th and 12th. But, I don't think Mark Stoops and James Franklin were crying in their cornflakes on Wednesday morning because they both signed good classes. The Mississippi schools, we've talked about Ole Miss, but Mississippi State, signed 5 of the top 8 players in the state of Mississippi. Ole Miss got the other 3. So now the Mississippi schools, are protecting their turf, which is not good for Tennessee because Tennessee used to go get players. Arkansas signed the number 1 running back in the country and got, a big South Florida surprise in Denver Kirkland on signing day. Georgia filled needs. South Carolina, that down year in that state, but they went and got, a 4-star player out of North Carolina. They got a good defensive tackle out of Georgia. They hit the Northeast again. Probably not the most stellar class in the league, but a good class nonetheless. Auburn was a huge signing day storyline, and they signed 3 5-star defensive linemen and were 6th. So that just kind of tells you that the rosters in this league aren't getting any worse potential-wise. And I mentioned earlier there is depth. I wish we counted sort of balance when we calculate team rankings because some schools do get out of balance, and then that hurts them. But, as far as just sheer talent goes, the SEC, again, appears to be heading towards being dominant.
Last couple things with you, JC. You guys have named Mike Groh from that Alabama staff as the 24/7 Sports National Recruiter of the Year. You mentioned the top 50 recruiters. That list will come out later today.
Top 50 recruiters in the country. We just do them by alphabetical order. We don't rank them. As far as the way we do it now. Now, what's coming on 24/7 Sports, probably in the next couple of months, is how we calculate team rankings using a formula and star commitments and stuff like that. We're actually going to have the recruiting industry's first assistant coach recruiter rankings, to where when a coach gets a commit, the computer's going to recalculate his score, and he'll go up and down. So you can imagine, during coaching change season when all these staffs are being put together, if you could check and you get a guy that's ranked, the 35th best recruiter in the country, you're doing pretty well. So I think that's an exciting addition to us. So this will be the last year that we just sort of select, and from now on it'll be up to the computer.
You mentioned Jay Graham is one of the best recruiters in the country, and you didn't know why Tennessee hadn't been able to get those elite running backs, and it's not because of him. What are the other things about this coaching staff in terms of recruiting that stand out to you?
Well, I think that they have 2 things going for them. I think they have some veteran coaches that have coached in the league before, which, of course, I think is very key. I also really, really like the way that they've got guys that can evaluate. The guys that came from Cincinnati. Cincinnati evaluated very well. They're very resourceful in recruiting. I think that sometimes that's what you have to do, especially if you're a program that has to go out of state like Tennessee. You need to be resourceful, which means, if you got a great JUCO player, you got to go take him. If you got a guy that's under the radar that you love out of another state, star rankings be, you got to go take him. I mean, that's being resourceful as you try to build a roster. And as we all know, as programs begin to win, you don't have to be as resourceful because then you're in the game for some obvious guys. But, I think that sort of resourcefulness and the fact that you do have coaches like Graham on the roster and some veterans, kind of bode well for the future for Tennessee. It's now, spring practice and getting into next season and seeing how things shake out for the Vols. And, maybe they can take advantage of this good crop of 2014 prospects right here in the Volunteer State.
Never-ending amount of information, 24/7 Sports, and then, of course, the Tennessee team site partnering with the Knoxville News Sentinel, GoVols247.com. The National Director of Recruiting is J.C. Shurburtt. J.C., appreciate you. Hopefully you can get a little bit of a breather, even though you're long into 2014 and 2015. But always appreciate your time, J.C.
Hey, thank you, guys. I appreciate it.